Welcome to the Hank Cisco Show, ladies and gentlemen. Don't touch that remote. I got a guest here. I mean, he is really a guest. He's a good friend of mine, and we got a lot to talk about some heroes. I mean, heroes. And he'll tell you more about it. We got to meet him. And my friend here is, and I'm going to introduce him in this corner of Madison Square Garden, weighing 100. Tell him who you are.
Stan Casacio.
All right, how do you pronounce that?
Casacio.
Yeah, my real name is Cisco, C-I-A-C-C-I-O, and you're almost the same.
Right. Well, my father, when he came to this country, he thought it would be easier for Americans to spell the name, so he dropped one of the C's off at the very end, and it was pronounced Casacio, and very close to you. How do you pronounce it? Actually, Casacio.
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 Well, I use Cisco, but when I went to Italy, in Sicily, my cousins, it's Ciaccio.
Ciaccio.
C-I-A, Ciaccio.
Casacio. Yeah.
So when I went to New York to box, my manager says, nobody can pronounce that. You'll call you Cisco from now on. So that's how I got to know Frank Rizzo. So now, tell me all about you now. You are a developer. Right. Tell me what you develop.
Developed shopping centers, apartment building. We just finished a brand new movie theater, a boutique movie theater out in Huntington Valley. It's a state-of-the-art movie theater. It's really great. It's 560 seats, and we're all recliners. You can fall asleep. If you don't like the movie, go to sleep. It's very interesting. In fact, we think the movie theater will save a lot of marriages, because if your wife wants to take you to a what we call a chick flick, you can go, have a glass of beer, and fall asleep, and your wife won't even know it. In the movie theater.
You know,
so that'll save a lot of marriages.
When I was boxing in New York, and the movies over there, you were allowed to smoke upstairs. And so here's all the chairs, and then in the back, and this guy was smoking, and he was getting the ashes on top of my head. I was so they don't no more smoking now.
Yeah.
Now, well, where's some of your challenges? What are some of the things that you had to put up with being a developer?
Well, there's always a challenge of getting the community to support what you want to do. And you have to meet with the community and see if there's a common ground that you can develop things. And in many cases, those meetings turned out to come up with great ideas. So I always spend a lot of time with the community before we go into developing anything.
Yeah, that's almost like Trump. You developed New York City.
Well, I'm about a 1/32nd of a Donald Trump. You know, I'm a little tiny thing compared to Donald Trump.
You're a big man in Montgomery County.
Well, my father used to say, you don't want to set the world on fire. You just want to create a little spark here and there, and that was.
I like words of wisdom.
That was his word. That was his words of wisdom. Then he would always tell me. He said, "Stan, just remember one thing: never get too high and mighty, because bigger men than you have fallen by the wayside." Yeah. So he was always taught us humility and to respect everybody, and that was important.
Well, I know you live in Flowertown, and I know you're very helpful in the community. Tell me some of the things that you help as far as in the community.
Well, I've always been one that if you complain about something, you should do something. When you complain about something, you should do something about it.
Yeah.
So I've always been involved in my communities. I served as vice chairman of a planning commission. I was a township commissioner in Cheltenham for 10 years. In Flowertown, I now sit on the zoning hearing board and offer a different perspective than the normal person on the zoning hearing board, because I'm a developer. And it's important. Those things that I did in my background when I developed talking to communities and everything else, I bring that to the table. So that's something that I add to it when we're reviewing zoning changes and things of that nature.
Your wife, she's a big help.
Yeah, my wife.
I know, I've been in your house. Tell me how some of the party you had, a Christmas party, and tell me about these here.
Well,
you had a beautiful get-together, heroes. Tell me about that.
Well, history's always been very important.
Show it. Put that.
History's always been very important. I want to show this to the camera people here.
Well, I think John's going to put.
He may put something on. Yeah. I think it's important to do that. I've always been a big history person, because I think that we should learn from past history to make our country better. And where there's enough examples of failures out there, and we don't want to do the same thing. we don't want to do the same
this
thing.
is what we're talking about, right?
Tuskegee Airmen,
Right.
yes. So basically, Tuskegee Airmen were pilots during World War II. But they were very unique pilots because up until that time, there was the Air Forces, the Air Force and the Navy and the Army, there was all segregation involved, and it was pretty brutal. But these men wanted to fight for their country.
Yes.
And they were able to get the support of Eleanor Roosevelt, and they were able to start their own combat aerial force, and they became known as the Red Tails, or the Tuskegee Pilots, because they were trained in Tuskegee.
Now, on October the 24th at 6 p.m., you had all 5. How many was 5?
We had 5 of the original pilots, we had 5 of the Tuskegees there, plus 2 B17 airmen. Now, the B17 bombers were pilots and airmen were all white, and the Tuskegees had their own base with their own support group and everything else. That's because it was segregated. But the interesting thing about the Tuskegees, they were there to support the B-17 bombers on these runs.
The barrier, the line there as far as white and black and the
right,
Army.
there was.
I think President Truman had a lot to do with that.
Well, it was really Eleanor Roosevelt who really came. Eleanor Roosevelt was really the one who got the Tuskegees off the ground, so to speak. But in any event, how this get-together got started was that, knowing a couple of Tuskegee pilots, we also met a couple of B-17 pilots. Now, these men are all in their late 90s at this point. The B-17 pilot was telling us that, when he was doing a bombing run into Germany, his engines went out and the Messerschmitts were hanging around ready to shoot them down because they were by themselves because they couldn't keep up with the bomber group. And he said, we were thinking we're going down. And he looked out the window, and there were these 2 Tuskegee pilots came up alongside of him, and they escorted them all home. And the thing about the Germans, they knew when they saw the Red Tails not to mess with them because the Tuskegees had 100% perfect record in never losing a B-17 bomber. They were assigned to protect. So the Messerschmitt stayed around for them. And he said to me, Mr. Fitzgerald said to me, he said, I never got a chance to thank them because we were separated. And we said, we can take care of that. And that was the genesis of putting this together. And it was the first time it was done in which we had B-17 pilots, one of who was, and you met him, was a survivor of Pearl Harbor, which was also very interesting. So they were able to thank them. And one of the pilots, and if you get a chance to see the video, they will talk to each other.
That segregation caused a lot of problems.
Well, the history of the African American in the United States is really interesting. Not many people know, and I'd love to come in and talk to the students here about it. But during the Revolutionary War, over 9,000 African Americans fought for the Patriots during the Revolutionary
on our side.
On our side. And when you say, well, why would they do that? They were slaves and they were mistreated and everything else. They fought to get recognition and they fought to be free. And maybe they didn't accomplish it in 100% of the motive, but they were able to move the dial one click over to create that. Something else and African Americans fought in every war in the United States for their country. During the 1812, the War of 1812 with Britain, I don't think many people know this, but almost 50% of the American Navy was made up of African American sailors.
No kidding. But now there's a lot now.
Yes. Yeah. But that was unbelievable that happened. And President Madison, when he talked to the commander of the Navy, he said, well, how did the black soldiers, the sailors, work out? He said, sir, he said, and this is a direct quote, he said, sir, they'd rather die by their guns than run from them. And they were given accommodation. And again, those men who fought earned the respect, and they moved that dial another click. There were some African Americans who fought in the Mexican-American War in 1845. And then we do know that the Lucretia Lamont, not that far from here in Lamont in Cheltenham, was a training ground for the black Civil War soldiers. Lucretia Lamont was an abolitionist who lived here, not maybe 15 minutes from here, and she helped to train the black soldiers that fought in the Civil War, and many of them gave their lives for freedom and the right to free and they accomplished that. We also had at this meeting, at this get-together, we had the daughter.
I shook hands with each one.
I know.
And they each one told their story.
I know.
And our MC was Don Giordano.
Don Giordano from 1210.
TV and radio.
Yes,
star.
Don Giordano, 1210.
I call him a star.
Yeah, he was all in.
He's a good friend of yours, right?
Yes, he is, and he was all in when I told him, hey, Dom, I'm putting this together. He says, I want to be there. I don't care what I do.
Yeah.
He said, well, we're going to make you the MC because, you know, and
I like
he's
to have
very
him
good.
on my show sometime. I'll make a contact
yeah,
for him.
he said he would be glad to do it if at one time, which you'd find interesting. But anyhow, as you went through the period, we had a young lady there who was the great-granddaughter of the first African-American licensed pilot in the United States, and his license number was 107. So this is back in 1912. He went on to fight not in the American Air Force because of the racism, but he fought with the French, and he received a number of medals during the World War I for the French. Of course, there was huge breakdowns of the racial barriers during World War II, mainly through Eleanor Roosevelt was very big in that, and it did happen. And then, of course, we had the Korean War, we had the Vietnam, Vietnam, and then at that point, now we can say that those cliques have moved the 24 hours, and the military is fully integrated and everything else, and they're brothers. They're brothers in battles.
People, segregation law, don't get the feeling, but I got it when I was stationed in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was fighting off the base, and I was fighting. I had from Atlanta outside about Fort Larson. It was a boxing exhibition. I had to fight 2 times in one night. And it was about maybe a 25-minute ride from Atlanta to the camp. And after the fight, I was tired. And I had my helper. And I got in the back of the bus, and where you in the back, and I laid down like, you know, I was tired. All of a sudden, this big black guy come on to me and says, hey, move up. I said, get out of here. I'm sleeping, yo. I couldn't. So next thing you know, he walks up to the bus driver. He said, all of a sudden, the bus puts the driver, stops. And the bus driver says, you, move forward. I had to get out of that seat and move forward, and he would have to sit in the back of me. And I said, this is crazy. I mean, really crazy. I mean, it was so much. So I don't want to go into that. That's another story.
Well,
but you get the feel of it. You know, even myself, being Italian, sometimes I'm discriminated because of this. They call you different names and all. You know, but I love this country.
Well, you know,
all sunshine makes deserts. Want a beautiful garden, you got to have all kind of rain, snow.
Well, I think if you match up our country to when you match up our country to almost any other country in the world, even with all our warts and our pimples and everything else that we have, we're still the greatest country. And we eventually overcome these issues because people really want to know just what's inside. The outside doesn't make a difference. And I truly believe that Martin Luther King's words are right. We should judge not on the content of their skin, but the content of their heart. And I think those are, and soul, and I think they're the most important things. But anyhow, it was a great honor for me to have these men there. And put them together to thank each other.
Tell me your other, now, you do some traveling? When you started looking for something like, you developed a place and all of a sudden you got another. What do you look for? What do you get in for? Where do you get your ideas, your opinions?
Well, you know, there was a movie that was done by Kevin Costner, and one of the comments was, "If we build it, they shall come. They will come." Well, that doesn't happen too much in commercial. You have to know the market, and you have to understand the market. You're not going to put, you know, something that doesn't have any, doesn't do anything for that marketplace at all, because you will fail. And awful times failures that happen in business are because people don't put them in the right spot. And that takes a certain amount of knowledge, but it also has a certain amount of gut feeling too. There's a lot in gut feeling. The gentleman who owns LA Fitness, he has a huge real estate department, and they go out and look for sites all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, he'll take that information and he flies to that spot. And if he doesn't feel it, no matter what the statistics says, he won't build it.
Oh, no?
He does it strictly on what's inside.
A gut feeling.
So development is a lot of it is information, but a lot of it is instinct, the instinct of what happens.
All right, now, what are some of your interests? I know you have a great Christmas party. You decorate your house, and inside, outside. Tell me something about it. Why do you do that?
Well, I think
and you cater.
I think that just doing family stuff and
you
just
invite your family and friends
and just having people get together once a year is really important. Just to acknowledge those friendships. And there's some people that come that I haven't seen during the year, or maybe once in a while, and we get together and it's like we never were apart. So those are interesting things for me to do.
Another interesting person. Joe Gale, the county commissioner, he made his announcement to become a commissioner in your house, right?
Yeah, I was.
So you play a little bit of
politics.
Tell me something about that.
I ran for Congress. I've been a township commissioner.
You make a good congressman. I'll vote for you.
Township commissioner.
You want to do that no more?
You never know, Hank. I see you. Well, here's a man who's.
I'll be your campaign. I'll campaign Montgomery County. Come on, let's go. Stan, the man.
Stand for Stan. Right. I would have you any day of the week as one of my campaign chairmen.
I think that you're very knowledgeable about the things, the world today or the United States today, and I think that's very important.
Well, common sense seems to be out the window, and people are so busy yelling at each other that they can't create new ideas. When people are yelling at each other, then there's no understanding of what's being said, so you can't create something new out here. I think the idea of discussing information, discussing ideas, you may have pretty difficult conversations, but at the end of the day, we have to listen to each other, and then hopefully we can create something better for society.
Why don't you give it another shot? What you got? Congress, senators. What else you got? What else?
I don't know. We'll keep you informed if anything comes up. You have state stuff.
You can't run for mayor because you live in Philadelphia.
You have counties. You have all kind of things.
County?
That you
can
have.
County commissioner. No.
You can. Maybe Joe Gale needs some help.
No, you want to go a little higher. Yeah.
You never know. You never know.
Go for Congress.
I would have loved to do Congress. I really feel that the Congress
is. When that opening come up?
2 more years now.
2 more years. All right. That's good.
I'll be still young.
Well, from now we'll start working. From now,
it sounds like
this show goes worldwide. It goes everywhere you want to go. You going to vote for him? You're going to run for Congress. Going to vote for him?
I hope so.
Okay, good.
I hope so. I love that.
All my paisans over there, right? All right, now, what is your hobby?
My hobby? Well, I was always an athlete.
What is?
I was always an athlete. I used to run track in school. I actually met my wife training for a triathlon.
What's your wife's name?
Diane.
Yeah.
Diane
she
Cardano.
Was a big help,
Diane
takes care of everybody.
She's a very fantastic business person. She has her MBA in marketing. She does a huge job in real estate. She's very different. So she's great in that field, and I give her all the credit in the world. She's a self-accomplished person on her own.
Let me say, you make a good. I don't want to say politician. What is?
I make a good guy.
Yeah. You don't have to worry about it. You got money. You don't have to go steal nothing from the. When you got information. You're well known. You're charitable. What else do you need?
Look, these are commitments that you make to your fellow neighbors and friends, and not everybody's going to like you. I've learned that in a little bit of politics that I've done. Not everybody likes you, and sometimes your friends in politics, they go against you for whatever reason. So it's a tough business.
My words of wisdom. Watch that guy that's patting you on the back and he's looking for a soft spot to stick the knife.
That happens a lot in politics. I mean,
no.
Yeah, we know about Julius Caesar.
All right.
That's when they played
What are
politics.
some of the nice things that what we can do to make this country great? You know, we hear the president say we want to make America.
Well, I think.
Well, let's start in Flower Town, Montgomery County. You know.
Well, first off,
Pennsylvania, United States.
Well, first off, really, just common sense is where people have to start.
Right. Get together, people.
Using logic to address certain problems. One of the things people talk about democracies and freedom, but they have to understand. There's a great book called The Road to Serfdom, and it talks about centrally planned governments. One of the things about our founding fathers is they experienced centrally controlled governments. They had kings and our theocracies and all those things. So when they came to America, they said, we don't want any of that. And they didn't trust government. So government's supposed to be a little bit, our government is supposed to be a little bit at odds at each other. But like I said, we should be able to argue, but we should also come up with ideas. Democracy to me always means there's a choice. When government does not give you a choice and says you've got to do it our way or the highway or they put you in jail, that's not democracy. It's like Janis Joplin in her song, when, you know, freedom is when you have nothing else to lose. So if government's taking everything away from you, you have nothing at the end. So if we start out with democracy and we start out with freedom, that means choice. We must have choices. Well,
you know, you say, well, what are you so grateful for? I'm grateful that my mother and father, well, my father would be the one that had the guts to get in a ship and come to the United States and made a better life for her family, you know. And that's number one, you know. But we got a question from the audience up there, the lady with the green hat. What advice would you give young people about being successful? You are a successful businessman, you're a developer, and you got a good personality, you got everything, you got family, you know, so what advice to become successful? What's the thing?
That is a great question.
That's a tough question, right?
It's a great
it's an easy question.
It's a great question. And you and I were young at one time.
Right.
But here's the thing. I told my kids this. I said, I don't care what I do. I said, pick something that you have passion for, that you love, that you enjoy, that you are willing to wake up in the morning and go out and do that. That's number one. Forget about the money aspect of it. Take a look at what turns you on. The young people here working these cameras today, they must have a real enjoyment for doing that. So that turns them on. So gear yourself to that aspect of life. It makes everything easy, because once you enjoy something, it becomes part of you. You will be successful. You will attain the monetary rewards that you want to obtain. And to me, being in this development thing, I mean, I started working as a carpenter, and I just love being on jobs. I just love the smell of dirt. I just love being out there and doing that stuff. So to me, it's a turn on. I get excited every morning I wake up knowing that there's a challenge out there. To me, that's the most important thing that a young person can do, is to find out what they're passionate about.
And go for it.
And then go for it, and let them breathe and think and read about it.
Don't lose the fight in the dressing room. Get out there. If you're going to win it, stood in the ring. Win or lose it, don't lose it in the dressing room. Get out there. Right, Rock? Right.
And the other thing is, don't make excuses.
What's that?
Don't make excuses. If one door closes, that means another door opens.
That's right. That's right.
All right? So always look for the other door. Yeah, there's many times I've been told no. But another thing, my father, you can add this to, my father used to tell me, you don't take no for an answer until you hear it 7 times.
That's right. I got another question for the audience. What are you looking for in developing you read it. You read it. The guy up there with the brown hat.
Yeah.
Take your hat off. You're inside. Tell him.
What are you looking for? What are you looking for in a development project?
Start from the beginning. Go ahead.
What are you looking for in a development project? So,
yeah, that's it.
Well, the first thing is if I get offers to buy ground.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me just, I'm going to interrupt you. But you develop shopping centers. Do you develop anything else?
Yeah, apartments. Office buildings.
Office buildings?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. Now, go ahead.
So basically, if someone comes to me and says, look, I'd like to develop this. Well, what's the market telling me in that area? Is it something for retail? Is it something for office? Is it something for medical? Or will it be for apartments, multifamily dwelling units? So that's number one. Then you have to take a look at what's going on in the marketplace financially, because at different times, financial institutions will be lending money to developers for different things. They may not want to lend money for commercial. They may only want to lend money for apartments. They may only want to lend money for medical practices. So in different times of the financial cycle, there are different aspects of availability of funds to do it. You also have to be available to put some of your funds up and put risk on the table, because it's all about risk. So you're taking risk.
You got to be alert.
Yeah,
right?
you got to
So while you're in school, get that education. Don't just come in here and sit around. Get your education.
I would say
talk about education.
I would recommend to all the students here, and any of the students, and I said this to my kids, take a course in accounting. I don't care how bad you are in numbers. If you can't balance your checkbook, you're in a lot of trouble. All right?
So
make sure you take accounting.
Wait, say that again. Say that again.
If you can't balance your checkbook, you're in a lot of trouble. So take an accounting course.
Okay.
And I see a couple of young people smiling.
You got any relations up in that up there in the audience there?
Yeah, the guy up by the left brick. I know him well.
Oh, here's another one here now. Read it out loud.
Why have you become so engaged in philanthropic activity? You always need, if you attain a certain level of success.
What's that mean? What's that mean?
Well, it means that you're willing to look out and help charity organizations and things of that nature. I believe that anybody who attains any level of a success, they should be willing to give some of it away, basically, to other groups and other things that you believe in, that you trust, that will be helping people. So those are important things. You got to give something back. Look, when I go out and I see a young person as a waitress, if that person or waiter, if that person gives me great service and is sweet and nice, I don't give him 20% tip, 15%. I'll give him 30% tip, because I want to acknowledge his ability or her ability to do a job more than 100%, giving 120%.
And you know that.
And you know that in boxing. You had to give 120%. When your legs were ready to give out, you had to go 1 mile further, right?
Right.
So that's important for people to understand, and people will acknowledge that, the ability to do that. So that's how you do it every day. You do it every day.
My mother could read or write, and my father, my mother used to read the Italian newspaper to him. My mother used to write. People used to come to the house, and she would write letters for them people, and she had a lot of words of wisdom. Do good and forget. Do bad and regret. And she says, do good and the people will move you forward. And I'll tell you, and we're moving forward. And we only got 30 seconds and the show's going to be over.
Oh,
30 seconds. Come on, tell what we want to do.
What are we going to do?
We're talking to students. We're talking to Montgomery County. We're talking to everybody.
Just remember that the state is not where you leave your allegiance. There is a force bigger than us. Some people refer to it as God, but you have to be aware that there's something bigger than us, and we have a responsibility to our fellow man to treat them correctly. And that's how I feel. Stan,
thank you so much for coming here. May God bless you. And I'm looking forward. You look good. You look healthy. You look like you're ready to roll. You're ready to rumble, right? Okay.
All the time.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for allowing us to come in. Don't forget, this show is carried by Comcast 28, Verizon 45, YouTube. Hank Cisco goes worldwide. So, you got any relations someplace out of the United States?
Yeah, I got a bunch of them all over the place.
All right, give them.
Hey, relatives, see you later.
Thank you so much. May God bless each and every one. Don't forget, left hand high, stick and move, and bob and weave, right? And keep your trunks off the canvas, okay? Right, thank you.
Good.
May God bless each and every one of you. Stan, thank you so much, and may God bless you. And we're going to hear more from you, okay? You come back anytime, okay?
For you, Hank, anytime.
You're the words of wisdom, okay? Thank you so much. You like that show? Right, all the camera guys are about it. You like it, everybody? Good. Okay, thank you. May God bless you.